Hello, everyone. Welcome back. If you're new, my name is Didi. I'm a South African living in New York City, and I'm still exploring what I'm doing with this channel. At the moment, I've just been sharing some of my life changes and my transitions and the work that I am doing internally. At the moment, I'm in Boston. I am at a friend's place. She's generously let me stay here. I actually came for a talk at Harvard that one of the most brilliant, amazing people I know, who also happens to be a friend, Kanyisile Mbongo, was giving a talk. And I managed to go. And it was as enriching as I imagined and more. So I'm now back at the apartment in Boston. And I'm deciding to share today about what I'm doing. Because I feel like there's been many, many moments in my life where I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? What are you doing? What are we doing with our lives? And I think at this particular moment in my life, I'm asking myself, what am I doing in a very big and deep way? Which is part of why, as I mentioned in my previous video, and by the way, thank you so much for all your responses. I am so heartwarmed by the support, but also a little bit saddened to hear that a lot of you have been dealing with the same things that I've been dealing with. And I hope that it helps to know that someone else, many other people also deal with the same exact concerns. And so as I was saying, in my last video, I mentioned that I would be resigning from my jobs. And Tuesday was my last day for the main job, which was my project manager job. And I'm going to be stopping the second job that I do on Saturdays in mid-February. And I'm so excited about that. The interesting thing that I didn't anticipate is that there was a sense of sadness. I felt a little bit sad. And I think that sadness is coming from a place of feeling on some level that when I leave a job that wasn't necessarily maybe a contract job or like a particular project, I feel like I failed if I don't complete. And it's an interesting thing because is there ever an end? Like if you think about working a job, is there an end? Unless it's a project where it's like, okay, we're building a bridge. Then you know the starting and the ending point. But when you work the kind of job where you are working with communities that are in need, it doesn't feel like there's ever an end. And so I'm realizing and I'm learning that it's okay to create your own end. You have to sew the seams yourself. You have to hem the lines yourself. And I'm doing that right now. So yeah, I've been feeling a sense of sadness, but I've also got this feeling of excitement, about what lies beyond the space of freedom, not having to show up somewhere. So today I actually really wanted to zoom in on my thinking process and my feeling process that has led to me deciding to just stop working for now, right? Somebody asked me today, like, what was the impetus or what triggered you to decide to make this transition? And I was like, deep exhaustion, because that's exactly what it is. I'm thinking back on, oh my gosh, so many days where I would literally be crying before I went to work. Sometimes I'd be crying on my way to work. And it got to a point where I knew when I would need to stop crying and getting myself together so that by the time I get to the office, my eyes are not red. That is dysfunction. And unfortunately, I was so good at operating in that way, feeling so broken and sad inside, like really just like on my last thread, but arriving to work and having to make nice. And I know that a lot of us feel that way, where you're working on a project the night before or a presentation and you are falling apart, bursting at the seams. But when you show up at work, it's bells on, smiles on, mask on, and you do what needs to be done. And quite frankly, I'm done with that. So that's number one reason why it just makes sense to take a break, right? So that's one. This having to turn on and off, on and off, on and off. I just don't want to participate in that any longer. And I understand the value of it because I've done it for a long time, but no more. Number two is I have been interrogating this concept of survival mode because I feel like I am often in survival mode. and I've lived in and operated in survival mode for such a long time that I'm often asking myself, do I know how to exist not in survival mode or not operating from that place? And I'm not sure I have the answer for that. And so this is an experiment to figure out, what does it feel like? What does Dee Dee live like? What does that Dee Dee look like when she is moving through the world, not from a place of survival? As some of you already know, as I've mentioned on my channel before, I grew up in a black township, poor black township, if I have to explicitly state that. And I'm realizing now in my reflection that as a result of the way I grew up, I have an obsession or a dedication to escaping poverty. I understand so much how distasteful it is, not just for me, but for the generations that came before me, that I am dedicated to no longer existing in that paradigm, in that space, in that atmosphere. I do not want to experience that ever again. And it's weird that I say it that way, because I feel like it's not just for me. Like, I often feel like I imagine what my great-great-grandmother, great-grandmother, grandmother, mother have been through in order for me to be in a space where I can even not just imagine, but grasp and reach and live a life of comfort. And sadly, even though I do feel like I live a life of comfort, my nervous system is so worked up that I don't always manage to enjoy the comfort, because I'm just like in survival mode, because I'm desperate to escape poverty. That's part of what it is. And so that's number 2, right? Number 3 is, I realize that whether I openly state it or not, on some level, I believe or believed that money could save me. That having more money could save me. And I'm just realizing that that is not true. That is just not the way it works. Even if I had a lot of money, I would still need to do inner work in order to be able to enjoy that money, or to feel free, to not let that money be a form of enslavement, right? And so it's sad to admit that I felt that having money would answer my problems. And I think a lot of us feel that way, like, man, as long as I can get enough money to get a deposit so I can get a mortgage, or as long as I can get my first house, as long as I can get a nice car, as long as I can get those nice outfits, as long as I can go on nice holidays, as long as I can get my kids in private school, as long as I can, there's always something more. There's always something more. And so I'm trying to learn how to find okayness without necessarily needing to live an opulent life, because I'm not sure that if, and in many ways it feels like when I reach that place, that I'll be satisfied. And I'm sad, because that's a sad admission, because it feels on some level like I'm saying I'll never be satisfied, which is, I don't think, how anyone wants to feel about themselves in their life. So that's number 3. Number 4 is, I want to put as much effort and energy as I put into other people's projects into myself. There's been so many times where I have jumped into projects and I've given so much, but when I look at my own stuff that I like doing, that bring me joy, nowhere to be seen, nowhere to be found. And this is not to say that the work that I've done in the past and that I've engaged in is not satisfying work, is not meaningful and purposeful, because it has been. I've been so fortunate that I've been able to work in spaces where I feel a sense of purpose, alignment, feeling that the work is meaningful and is actually making an impact, a positive impact on people's lives. I've been so lucky to pursue that and to be able to exist in those spaces and to contribute in that way. So I'm thankful for that. However, that does not change the fact that I am not just my job. And it's okay if you feel that your calling and your job are one and the same. Hallelujah, viva you. But for me, I've had to consider that that's not always the case. There's been moments in my life when I felt, oh my gosh, there is nothing else that I could be doing with my life. If I die tomorrow, I'll be so satisfied. There's been moments like that. However, in my thought process, I've realized that there are things that I like doing that I haven't done. I like going for hikes. When was the last time I went for a hike? I like creating handmade collages. When was the last time I made a handmade collage? I love karaoke. Like, so much. When was the last time I went to karaoke? I want to learn how to punch needle because I want to work with textiles in the future. When have I picked up a needle if it wasn't to sew something quickly before going to work? And there's a long list of other things. I love swimming. When was the last time I went swimming? Right? A lot of things. And so in vacating my jobs, I'm trying to occupy space in my own life, again, centering myself now, to find the things that I enjoy doing. Because it could be that that list is no longer the case, again, because I'm relearning and learning myself and discovering myself, you know. I'm returning to myself in many ways. Yeah, and then the last one is I just feel like when a person is as busy as I was, I used to work 6 days a week. Okay, and all my jobs required so much, you know, energy, effort, care, love, patience. And it's like I had to be so present in every single job that I had. And it's actually interesting because I always say to my husband, if I'm at work, I'm at work. So please, if I don't reply to your messages, please don't take it personally. It's because my roles require me to be fully present, you know? And that's also resulted in a deterioration of some relationships because I'm not someone who texts immediately. Sometimes it can take me 10 days or a month to get back to a text message. I'm not blaming the job on that. That's all me, right? So yeah, those are the things. I feel like oftentimes we busy ourselves with busyness to avoid doing the work, to avoid facing ourselves. I'm going to change that. I'm going to talk to myself about myself. I'm not putting it on anyone else. I find that sometimes I'm so busy busying myself that I don't get the opportunity to do the inner work that's required. I'm so busy busying myself because on some level, I'm trying to look away from myself because maybe there are things that are too painful to look at, too ugly to look at, too exhausting to disentangle and work through the knots. And I'm ready to do the work. And I'm not trying to downplay the work that I do because I feel like I'm quite an introspective person. But even then, I know for a fact, just because I know myself, that I have not been doing the work to the depth and the thoroughness that I think I deserve to give myself. Because that's the level of thoroughness and depth that I give to my jobs. And to wrap this up, a lot of us identify ourselves by the work we do. How many times have you been in a social situation and you've been asked, so what do you do? What do you do? That question is wrapped in so much, right? It's wrapped in, I'm trying to contextualize and situate you in my constellation of social connections. I'm trying to locate you and place you somewhere. But then there's also another part of it where it's a genuine curiosity about who are you, what do you do, what are you interested in, right? And it's also a way of getting to understand what matters to people, because if you're dedicating 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week to this craft, to this thing, to this job, it must mean something. You must be very interested in it, right? And it's a way of getting to know people. That's like the part of me that's like believes the best in people. However, I will say that for me, I used to lean on that as a crutch to avoid having to really think about, who am I? Who am I outside of my work or my jobs? Who am I? Who are you outside of your jobs? Remove the job title. Remove the company. Who are you? And that's the question that I'm trying to answer. I became so good at answering the question. People ask me, so what do you do? I had it. I work as a project manager for the last 15 years, and my work sits at the intersection of arts, placemaking, and learning. On Saturdays, I'm a digital instructor. I'm an instructor for digital literacy, and I work with neurodiverse young people. Right? And that was wow, right? Because they got their answer, they understand what I'm interested in, and that's that. But it doesn't always necessarily speak to who I am. And it doesn't matter. I'm not saying that every person you meet needs to know who are you in that level of depth. So that's what I wanted to share today. Some of my thoughts and my feelings leading up to this decision. In my excitement, there's a little bit of trepidation. There's a little bit of what's next. I find myself sometimes just like looking on job sites to see if I can find just a part-time job. And every time I do that, I speak to the part of myself that's scared, that's fearful, the part of myself that believes that in order for me to be of value, in order for me to be worthy to exist, to be worthy of taking space, I need to be doing something, producing something. And actually, it's my birthright to exist and to be joyful and to enjoy life. I'm not saying this in a way where there isn't a responsibility to give back, even the idea of giving back, to give, right? Because if you're giving back, it's because you're taking something, and so there's a deficiency, and so you need to replace and replenish. That's a conversation for another day. But yeah, I'm not trying to abdicate my responsibility as a fellow human being with gifts and talents and skills to contribute to my communities, to the global community, etc. But I do think that there's a way to think through how to exist in the sense of contributing skills and talents that is not so tied up with my identity. I don't need to identify myself as my job in order to be valuable and worthy of existing. And that's where my work is. Got lots of work to do. I would like to hear from you. Have you ever had that experience of feeling like you are your job, or feeling like you're clinging onto your job title? To find validity, to be taken seriously, to feel that you matter, to justify why you're sitting at a table, that it's not enough to just be you. You need to have this title to hold on to give you legitimacy. It makes sense, but how does it feel? So curious to hear your thoughts. I gotta go now. It's almost 20 minutes. Thank you for all your messages. I've appreciated it. Thank you for your attention, your time. Please write to me. I really appreciate hearing from you and what you're going through and what you're thinking and how my messages get received. I hope you have a wonderful day further. Goodbye.